Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin with Reedsy, and today we're going to be talking about the steps needed to publish a children's novel. So there's of course a lot of overlap when publishing a children's novel versus an adult novel, but today I'm going to specifically try to highlight some differences to consider when publishing specifically for a children's audience. The first important step is to understand your category. Children's literature is broken up into numerous age brackets which affect content and word count. Picture books are usually aimed for audiences under 5, and the word count is going to be very short, maybe 500 words or less. Then a step up for that, we have books for early readers. These are for kids around the age of 5 or older. Word count is going to be around 2,000 to 5,000. Chapter books are going to be for kids around the age of 6 to 9, with word counts between 5,000 and 10,000. Now we're getting into slightly longer novel type books, with the middle grade category, usually aimed at kids around the ages of 8 to 12, and the word count here is going to be around 30,000 to 50,000. Finally is young adult, which is generally aimed at audiences between the ages of 12 and 18. Here we're going to see quite a wide range from around 50,000 to around 100,000. It is important to remember when writing YA that although a lot of adults read YA, the content is determined by the target audience, which is going to be teenagers. Step 2 is to research the market. Just taking a trip to a bookstore to look at the category you're publishing in can be really helpful. Brick and mortar stores make up a much wider percentage of sales for children's books than adult books. Look at which authors are popular, which themes and concepts seem to be doing well, and which publishers are publishing these books. This research isn't meant to guide you towards just writing to what's a current trend. It's to give you an understanding of what content is suitable for different age categories, what kind of content young audiences seem to gravitate towards, as well as to give you a good understanding of what might be overdone and therefore something you could try to subvert. Step 3. Polish your manuscript. As with any book, your manuscript should be as clean and polished as possible before you start pursuing publishing. But especially when writing with these really short word counts, it's really important that every line is as clean and polished as possible. Writing for children should be very clean, clear, concise, and easy to understand, so it's also very important to pare back any possible wordiness. It can also really help to get feedback from children in the category you're writing from. It's also really important to get feedback from parents, since they're going to be the ones buying for their children. Step 4. Engage with children's writing communities. As an established member of a community, it's much easier to find readers and learn about the publishing industry. There are things like the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, as well as Facebook groups where you can get feedback, and there will be links to various communities like this in the description. So now it's time to publish, and here are a few things that might differ between publishing for adults versus publishing for children. First of all, work with an editor before querying. Many traditionally published authors choose to work with an editor before querying their manuscripts. However, when writing children's literature, it can be really beneficial to make sure the content is well suited to the age category. There are a lot of unspoken rules and standards about content within children's literature, and it's good to have a professional tell you whether or not you're adhering to all these standards. As well, because word counts are often shorter in children's literature, especially towards the younger age categories, a professional edit can be much more affordable and give you the advantage of having a much cleaner novel. A lot of children's books feature illustrations. Even if you have a vision for what you want those illustrations to look like, it's important that you don't hire an illustrator yourself. Illustration is part of the book's design, and if you're traditionally publishing, it's not something the author has control over. If you're going the traditional publishing route, the next step is to find an agent. It's standard now for pretty much every author to work with an agent. Finding an agent involves the process of querying, sending query letters to possible agents to introduce them to your manuscript. This process is relatively similar between adult and children's fiction. However, it is really important to make sure you're only querying agents who represent the specific age category you're writing for. An agent who's interested in YA isn't necessarily going to be interested in your chapter book or picture book. If you're unable to find an agent, there are some publishers who will work with unagented authors. However, this can depend on your region. For example, Penguin Australia accepts unagented submissions, but their US and UK branches only work with agented authors. You can also look for niche branches of big imprints, since some of them also work with unagented authors. Resources like the Children's Writers and Illustrators Market have directories where they list publishing houses that you could submit to without an agent. Some imprints don't take submissions year-round, but you can subscribe to the author's published newsletter, which sends out notifications on opening submissions. If traditional publishing doesn't seem right for you, the other option would be self-publishing. self-publishing. How is self-publishing a children's manuscript different from self-publishing an adult manuscript? First of all, luckily, hiring a freelance editor can be much more affordable for a children's book because of the lower word count. Second of all is the illustration. This way you have control over the illustrations because you're hiring and working with the illustrator directly. You can expect to spend around $4,000 on illustrations if you're hiring a recent graduate or illustration student. Unlike with traditional publishing, your illustrator will probably receive a flat fee instead of a percentage of the royalties, since the illustrator isn't going to bank on whether or not your book will be successful. Also keep in mind that an illustrator is not the same as a designer. It's very rare for an illustrator to also handle the book's design. It's important to hire a designer early in the process before your illustrator is done the final designs. This is so the designer can advise on the proper placement for text and illustrations within the book. Next up, choose a printer and distributor. Picture books, print books are much more in demand than ebooks, which generally dominate the sales in other categories. The main options for print-on-demand services are usually IngramSpark or CreateSpace. Blurb is another option if you want more customization, but the base cost is much more expensive. And all of these print-on-demand services will allow you to sell through all major online distributors. If you're publishing for children, it's also important to go to libraries, since many parents make use of library services. Getting your book into a library is basically free advertisement. If a parent is familiar with your work through a library, they'll be much more likely to recommend your work to other parents or purchase your future work. For more information on this process, Reedsy has a free course on getting your book into libraries, and I'll leave a link for that in the description. So finally is marketing. Again, marketing a children's book is going to have a lot of similarities to marketing an adult book, but one difference is that especially in the younger age categories, you're selling to the parents, not the readers themselves. Here are a few details to keep in mind. Number one, importance of reviews. Now, reviews are always important when marketing your book, but they serve a slightly different function with Kids Lit. When parents are buying books for their kids, they'll often look at reviews to see if the content is suitable for their children. So if there are no reviews, parents will really struggle because they won't be able to find that information. Most parents of young children are millennials, so make a lot of use of social media. Therefore, marketing through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, using hashtags, and using a street team can be really effective. If you're working with some sort of social media influencer, make sure their audience aligns with your own, therefore the parents of young kids. Another really great marketing strategy for Kids Lit would be school visits. Get in touch with the librarian or administrator to see if you can set that up. I know when I was a kid, author visits were one of the most exciting things that ever happened at my school, and I would always beg my mom to buy the book for me. That's it for this video. If you want more information on marketing a children's book, Reedsy has a free course on that, which I will also link in the description. So thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.